Hey, American Fighting Revolver fans, it's Brian with a Y. This video is going to go up on our YouTube channel, our website, probably Rumble, all the places so you can watch it in all the different ways. But Shield Arms, if you know them, they've done the Glock magazines and things like that in the past. At SHOT Show, they launched the Rock Mount, R.O.C, Revolver Optic Conversion. And what this allows you to do is put a Sheild RMSC pattern optic on your favorite J frame. I was immediately intrigued. You guys that know me know I'm not a huge dot guy, but I can tell you as my eyes age, revolvers get a little more difficult to see those sights, and especially on the J's. Outside of like the ultimate carry from Lipsy Special Edition from Smith and Wesson, those guns I can still see the sights on. But for my older J frames, and in this case, I've got a 340 M&P with the U notch and the small XS dot on the front. So I'm going to mount up this optic mount, and I'm going to put a Gideon Judge, which is an open emitter RMSC footprint, very affordable optic, and a friend of ours runs that company. So real excited about that. Now, Shield Arms did provide this free of charge. For me and Daryl to demo and to show you guys like what it is, what it does, how easy it is to mount up, how easy it is to get a dot on your now dotless revolver, right? So some other brands have started making optic plates, but for the original pattern like J frames, there hasn't been a whole lot of options out there. This, I think, it's a non-permanent mount, so you can restore the gun back to its factory configuration if you want to move it, whatever you're going to do with it, or you just decide to move that to another J frame. So first things first, I'll get into what's in the bag. So here's the extra one that'll go on one of Daryl's guns eventually, but you have the mount. The mount itself kind of matches up to the Centennial side plate, and there are a couple of insert adapters. There's an A adapter and a B adapter, and that all they do is they're a little different height because some of the deck heights on the J frames up here are a little different. So I found with the 340 M&P, the B deck height seems to line up the best. And from what I understand, you want that to actually contact the top strap. There's two shims. On this particular gun in the mock-up, it only required one shim to center that mount. There's two side plate screws, and they provided a little Loctite 243 little thread locker there for Loctiting the side plate screws, which I don't do, and also Loctiting the screws on the optic. So before we get into the optic, the first thing we got to do, I have the grips off of this gun. We're just going to take the side plate screws out. Very simple. And you'll want to take the side plate screw that is closest to the back of the trigger guard. So on the J, you've got the yoke screw, and then we call this like the trigger guard screw, and then that's the top screw. There's probably some other nomenclature, but that's the way I remember them. And these two screws are interchangeable. There's no difference in the length of them. On the older Smiths, they were a little bit different. If you notice, I'm working off this. This is a ransom rest master mat, and these things are worth their weight in gold. Love it. So now that we've got that off, what I found the easiest thing to do is just take one of these shims, and it will just kind of mirror image the back side of the optic mount. And then we just set the optic mount and the plate down here together, and we're going to install their optics or their side plate screws. Now, they provide also a T10, Torx T10 driver that lines up with their optic screws. So just going to set that in. And what I found is if you just put your finger on it and kind of hold that shim in place, and then don't torque it down yet. Get the threads started, and then we're going to go to the rear one. And I don't know if you can see, but that shim is kind of sticking out of the back. So we'll just center that shim up, and fish that screw around just a little bit to really get it centered up in there. And we will get that snug down. Now, side plate screws, when you tighten these things down, all you really need to do is go back and forth and let the side plate settle. So once you start feeling a little resistance on one, go to the other, and just till you feel a little resistance. Okay, now we're starting to get some bite. So that means the side plate has settled into place. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to over torque these. So I'm putting them on little bit hand tight there, and just snugging them up against the frame. So now we got the frame and the optic mount mounted. And what we'll want to do next is look down the back of the sight and make sure that the sight is centered on the rear of the gun. And what that shim does, it allows you to move that sight a little further outboard. But there's kind of a sweet spot in there, and I found that is right where the sweet spot is on this gun is one shim. So there are some varying frame widths with these guns between airweight and steel frame. You may not even need a shim. It's just dependent on your gun. So I'm looking through the sight mount, and everything looks centered up. And the other beauty of this mount, you can actually see the sights underneath the mount. So, if your red dot failed or something like that, you can actually see the front and rear sight underneath that plate. All right, next thing up is to get our optic out. And this is the Gideon Judge, and they're really affordable. They've got a 3 MOA dot, and they have like a shake awake. I mean, there's a whole lot of optic for not much cost. Word is on the street, there's a lot of good things about this Gideon optic. So we'll open up the optic. Now, one of the things Gideon does is they provide the optic with a Picatinny rail mount. So we're going to have to remove that Picatinny rail mount. And they also include a number of different mounting screws for different heights and different thicknesses of plate. So good on them for providing all these mounting screws, because I got to tell you, in the past, finding the right screw and the right dome and the right this and thread and having to grind stuff, it really gets to be tedious. But they've provided just a bunch of different optic screws for the mounting process. So let's see. Gosh, one, two, yeah, there's a bunch. So also they include a couple of like little dog leg wrenches with the different thread pitches, and it appears they're T10. So thanks to Sheild Arms for the T10. Now this is a bottom battery mount optic. So when I take the optic off, what's going to happen is the battery box is going to be exposed under here, and it takes to a standard CR 2032. We'll keep this RMSC uh, Picatinny mount just for spare parts, etc. But as you can see, there's the little lithium cell CR 2032, and it came with a battery installed. I'm just going to leave this installed for now. If you're kind of a battery snob and you want to change the battery, more power to you. So we'll go ahead and set this on the mount. Okay. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to just kind of eyeball these screws to see about how far down they go. And what I mean by that is I'm just going to look and visually see, and those screws are the right depth, but they're not quite the right size for this. So I think these screws are going to be the 10 millimeter screws here. So, and they sent plenty of them. Thank you, Gideon Optics. So we'll check with our little handy dandy thread checker here if that's the correct screw, and it is. So that should give us plenty of thread count. to get that into the Optic. Now, I'm not going to Loctite these currently. These screws have a little bit of thread locker on them, and what I'll do is I'll get the mount all set up, and then I'll back the screws out and make sure that they're acceptable for, or they're cleaned off and they'll accept thread locker. So I'm just going to hand tighten those for now. And then if you notice, I have a fat wrench over here, and I will torque that down to about 15 inch-pounds seems to be kind of the sweet spot. So let's set our torque wrench at about 15, and there's 15 inch-pounds. We're almost done. As you can see, this is like 5 to 7 minutes, and I had this up and ready to go. I mean, so we'll go back on with our grips. Here is our lanyard pin. Now these things, people lose these all the time out of these 340 M&Ps, and I am just extra cautious when it comes to that. One of the other things, some of your grips, like these rubber, these are older Uncle Mike's grips, you may have to modify that top edge, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. As you can see, that top edge is kind of folding up, but for the purpose of the video, I'm not going to trim it off, but you may have to take an X-Acto knife or something and trim those. If you're running the Hamry Forge hook grips, you can actually modify the underside of the hook just slightly, and these are compatible with those, or they can be made compatible. So now I've got the grips on, turn the Optic on, and the Optic comes on perfect. And now we're all ready to go and test fire this thing. So as you can see, now we have a J-frame with an Optic. So your next question is, well, will my holster work? Well, I don't know if your holster will work, but at AFR we sell the KSG Saratoga, and the KSG Saratoga out of the box is compatible with the Shield Arms Rock mount. So there you go, guys. About 15 minutes here, and 7 to 10 minutes to put the Optic on, and we're in business. So I am going to make it my mission to see how far we can make hits with a J-frame now, because we have this option available to us. Now, again, RMSC footprint. So lots of good options for optics out there. Holosun, SIG, everybody's making an RMSC mount or compatible footprint optic. We went with the Gideon just because we like Mike Branson and we wanted to support his company. B, they're very affordable. You guys got any questions? Drop them in the comments. I'm going to go get out to the gun range and see if I can't get this thing zeroed and give, kind of a rough idea of what sight in distance you want to try with these, etc. So as you can see, it does set up a little bit tall on the Optic, or on the actual frame, but that's okay. We're going to see what happens. So anyway, guys, if you haven't, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, AmericanFightingRevolver.com. Check out more content like this. All right, dudes, have a good one.